Keilmuan dosen di program studi ilmu pertanian juga ditingkatkan melalui kelompok riset yang ada, yaitu kelompok riset bahan tanam, kelompok riset teknologi budidaya tanaman perkebunan, dan kelompok riset pasca panen komunitas perkebunan. Program studi ilmu pertanian memiliki 3 laboratorium yang dapat dioptimalkan untuk sarana penunjang pembelajaran dan penelitian, yaitu Laboratorium Botani dan Fisiologi Tanaman Perkebunan, Laboratorium Teknologi Produksi Tanaman Perkebunan, dan Laboratorium Teknologi Panen dan Pasca Panen Tanaman Perkebunan. Laboratorium Botani dan Fisiologi Tanaman Perkebunan berfokus untuk menghasilkan suatu bahan tanam pangan, baik untuk dalam ketahanan tanaman terhadap OPP atau organisme pengganggu tanaman, stres atau jikaman secara asimotif, dan beberapa sifat atau karakteristik bahan tanam spesifik lokasi. Laboratorium Teknologi Produksi Tanaman Perkebunan berfokus untuk melakukan inovasi dan teknologi budidaya tanaman yang sesuai dengan ekologi untuk meningkatkan produktivitas tanaman. Laboratorium Teknologi Panen dan Pasca Panen Tanaman Perkebunan berfokus untuk menghasilkan inovasi teknologi yang komprehensif dan dapat menunjang peningkatan daya saing produk hasil perkebunan. Kegiatan pembelajaran dan penelitian di alam juga didukung dengan ketersediaan laboratorium alam sebagai tempat praktik mahasiswa berupa agrotechnopark dan greenhouse. Pengembangan jangka panjang yang diharapkan ketiga laboratorium menjadi laboratorium yang terstandar, menjadi unit pelayanan untuk pengujian, konsultasi masalah perkebunan, produksi bibit tanaman perkebunan unggul, inovasi hubungan budidaya tanaman perkebunan, serta sentra pengolahan panen kopi rakyat yang berkualitas. Program studi ilmu pertanian hingga tahun 2021 telah menerima lebih dari 150 mahasiswa yang dijaring melalui seleksi SNMPTN, SBMPTN, dan SBMPTN. Animo calon mahasiswa program studi ilmu pertanian meningkat dengan pesat dibandingkan di awal pembukaan program studi. Profil lulusan program studi ilmu pertanian diharapkan dapat berperan di bidang perkebunan dengan menjadi manajer industri perkebunan, konsultan usaha perkebunan, penyuluh perkebunan, serta asisten mengikuti bidang perkebunan. Untuk meningkatkan kompetensi mahasiswa, program studi ilmu pertanian mewajibkan setiap mahasiswa untuk mendapatkan sertifikat kompetensi. Fakultas Pertanian memfasilitasi uji kompetensi sebagai fasilitator pertanian organik maupun asisten pengendalian OPT yang dilakukan berdasarkan kerjasama dengan lembaga sertifikasi profesi pertanian organik atau LSDPO. Sertifikat kompetensi dikeluarkan oleh BNSD dengan kompetensi tes 1, 2, 3 tes 1, 2 tes dan fasilitator pertanian organik dan asisten POPT. Hingga saat ini, lebih dari 40 mahasiswa telah tersertifikasi sebagai fasilitator pertanian organik maupun asisten POPT. Untuk menunjang pembelajaran dari
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to webinar Innovation Technology of Plantation Products. This webinar is organized by Study Program of Bachelor of Agriculture, University of Jember. Let me introduce myself. I'm Daniel Octavia Senturi, student of Bachelor of Agriculture as the Master of Ceremony in this webinar. It is an awesome and precious change for me to be your Master of Ceremony in this morning. Our webinar is about to begin. Thank you very much for preparing yourself to join our webinar. Please have a nice seat. His Excellency, the Dean of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember, Professor Dr. Insinyur Sutriyono MP. His Excellency, Chairman of Study Program of Bachelor of Agriculture, Insinyur Sutriyono MP. Honorable speakers, Dr. Hondo, Professor Triagus, and Dr. Jakia. Honorable all lecturers and students Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember. Respectable all participants of this webinar. Firstly, let's thank to Almighty God who has given us some mercies and blessings, so we can attend this webinar without any obstacles. Ladies and gentlemen, on this special morning, we have several agenda as follows. First, greeting from Master of Ceremony. Second, sing National Anthem of Indonesia Raya. Third, sing Hymn of University of Jember. Fourth, opening remark from the Dean of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember. Fifth, praying. Sixth, introduction of moderator. Seventh, talk from Dr. Hironori Hondo from Shizuoka University, Japan. 8. Talk from Professor Triagus Sisoyo, SP MATR PhD from Pui Biokin University of Jember, Indonesia. 9. Talk from Dr. Jakia Sultana Jyoti from Katagram Veterinary and Animal Science University, Bangladesh. 10. Q&A session and closing statement from speakers. 11. Documentation. 12. Closing. Well, ladies and gentlemen, before we begin our webinar for today, let's open by reciting basmalah together. Now, we will sing National Anthem Indonesia Raya and continue to sing Hymn University of Jember. I invite all participants in this room to stand up. this room to sit up. Ladies and gentlemen, the next agenda is opening remark from the Dean of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember, Professor Dr. Insinyur Sutriyono MP. Time is yours.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sehat selalu. Yang kami hormati Bapak Ketua Program Studi Ilmu Perkebunan, yang kami muliakan dan kami banggakan Ketua Program Studi yang ada di lingkungan Fakultas Pertanian, Guru Besar Fakultas Pertanian, dalam hal ini ada Bapak Tri Agus, Bapak WD 3 yang nantinya bertugas sebagai moderator, dan hadirin yang kami muliakan. Pertama-tama marilah kita ucapkan puja dan puji syukur kehadirat Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, karena kita dikaruniai sehat, dikaruniai nikmat melihat, mendengar, pikiran yang sehat, sehingga hari ini kita bisa mengembangkan ilmu pengetahuan yang ada di Fakultas Pertanian, dan khususnya serta para hadirin yang kami muliakan, baik luring maupun daring. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Pertama, saya ucapkan banyak terima kasih kepada pembicara dan juga rekan-rekan panitia yang telah banyak dan juga bekerja untuk melakukan kegiatan webinar ini. Webinar ini merupakan suatu jangkauan kinerja kita untuk melihat bagaimana Fakultas Pertanian ke depan. Perlu kami informasikan bahwa kinerja Fakultas Pertanian minimal dalam 1 tahun ada 22 webinar yang harus dilakukan oleh program studi. Pada hari ini program studi ilmu perkebunan melakukan kegiatan webinar insya Allah internasional, karena diikuti oleh berbagai negara dan juga menggunakan bahasa Inggris. Dan nanti siang juga ada webinar internasional yang dilakukan oleh program studi ilmu tanah. Kami persilahkan pada audien kali ini nanti siang juga bisa mengikuti perkembangan di dalam ilmu tanah. Bapak dan Ibu sekalian, saya ucapkan selamat datang kepada pembicara utama, dan saya mengapresiasi yang luar biasa khususnya kepada Dr. Hirolori, yang kedua Prof. Tri Agus. Ini kebetulan dari Fakultas Pertanian, dan saya harapkan Fakultas Pertanian Universitas Jember bisa sejajar, bisa memberikan sumbangsih ilmu pengetahuan terkait dengan ilmu tanaman, dan nantinya bisa memberikan feedback kepada rekan-rekan sekalian. Dan tidak lupa Bapak Jakian Sultana. Oh maaf, Miss Jukia Sultana Judi, Joti, mohon maaf. Ini merupakan hal yang luar biasa bagi rekan-rekan sekalian, khususnya di Fakultas Pertanian, yang nanti akan beliau memberikan sharing terhadap ilmu pengetahuannya. Dan mudah-mudahan sekali lagi ini sangat bermanfaat buat kita semua, meningkatkan prestis dari Fakultas Pertanian. Dan dengan ucapan Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, kami buka webinar terkait dengan Innovation Technology and Plantation Product tahun 2022 dengan ucapan Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Acara ini resmi saya buka.
Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue to the main session, we will pray together with hope this event can run smoothly from the beginning to the end. To Fajri Ramadan, time is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. The Honorable Dean of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember, speakers and participants of webinar Innovation Technology of Plantation Products. Let us bow our head for a moment, pray to God Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, so that our webinar can be precious to all of us. I will let this pray beside the teaching of Islam, and those who are non-Muslim, you are pleased to pray according to each of your belief. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahirabbil alamin, hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan wahabin, a'ma yukafi musidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhikal karim wa 'azimi sultanik. Allahumma shalli wa sallim ala sayyidina Muhammadin salatan tunjina biha min jami'il ahwali wal afat. Wa taqdina ya Allah bi jami'il hajat, wa tutahhiruna biha min jami'is sayyi'at, wa tarfa'una biha indaka 'ala darajat, wa tubarrina fiha aqsal ghayat min jami'il khairat fil hayati wa badal mamat. Allahumma inna nas'aluka salamatan fid din wa 'afiyatan fil jasad wa ziyadatan fil ilmi wa barakatan fil rizqi wa taubatan qabla al-maut wa rahmatan inda al-maut wa maghfiratan ba'da al-maut wa najatan minan nar wal afwa inda al-hisab. Allahumma ighfir lana wa li walidayna wal muslimina wal muslimat wal mu'minina wal mu'minat al-ahya'i minhum wal amwat innaka sami'un qarib mujibud du'awati ya qadiyal hajat. Oh Allah, today, Thursday, June 28, 2022, in this beautiful moment, we gather here to bring about webinar. The theme is Innovation Technology of Plantation Products. Make this international webinar as a useful science assembly, as a medium of sharing useful ideas, knowledge, and experience of scholars, research, and students of various disciplines. May the webinar we organize today benefit to our lives, broaden our knowledge, science our ideas, and lead us to be successful, productive persons, which in turn will boost dignity of our nation. Oh Allah, guide and bless our heart and our minds with the light of your guidance. Impart your supreme wisdom upon our activities. Help us to speak our minds clearly. Help us to listen to each other, respect each other, love each other, so that we are included to the blessed persons. Oh Allah, protect us from unintended temptation, so as the right path, and give us knowledge and strength to perform good things. Equally, so as and make it clear the bad things, and give us knowledge and strength to avoid them. Oh Allah, you are the one who can fulfill our prayer. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaytana min azwajina wa dhurriyyatina qurrata a'yun waj'alna lil muttaqina imama. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Amin. Wallahul muwaffiq ila aqwamit thoriq. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Now, we are going to the main session of this webinar. This session will be led by Dr. Insinyur Soleh Afifi, MSI, as our moderator. Dr. Afifi is a Vice Dean of Student Affairs and also one of lecturer in Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember. He has made some publications and books. Here are some of his recent research papers. The first is application of fluorescence and UV-based datation methods to profile antimicrobial activity of cassava tissue for an efficient acrobatical mediate transformation. The second is morphological, physiological, and molecular responses of Indonesian cassava to drought stress. The third is effect of ethylene inhibitor, type of auxin, and type of sugar on ether culture of local East Java aromatic rice varieties. Dr. Afifi, time is yours.
Thank you, dear. Thank you very much for coming to join our webinar today. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat pagi, salam sejahtera, salam sehat untuk kita semua. Good morning all. Honorable Dean of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember, the speakers, Prof. Triagus, Dr. Hirnuri, the chairman of this webinar, Insinyur Supriyono MP, and honorable all participants of this seminar. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Soleh Afifi, the moderator of today's seminar. I'm very pleased to see you here and welcome all of you to this seminar. Let me introduce you all the honorable speaker today. The first speaker in this session is Dr. Hirunuri Hondo. Currently, he is an associate professor majoring in food physics at School of Food and Nutritional Sciences, University of Shizuoka, and presently he has 11 research papers and 2 books. He has interest on structure of crystals, fat crystals, oil migration in chocolate, and so on. The new topic of his research paper are: first, polarized FTIR, ATR spectroscopies, study on the structure of chocolate, influence of mold on fat crystalline structure. It was published on 2021. The second, coconut oil crystallization on tripalmethane and triscreen seed crystal with different polymorphs. It was published in 2020. The third, effect of cis-trans isomerization on the crystallization behavior of triacylglycerol. It was published in 2020. All published in the Crystal Growth and Design Journal. Some of his books are fundamental aspects of crystallization of lipids and molecular mechanism of alpha-glucosidase, carbohydrate active enzyme, structure, function, and application. Hello, Dr. Hirnuri. Could you please unmute and on your camera today? Hello, Dr. Hirnuri. In this morning, Dr. Hinori Hondrok will share an interesting topic about fat crystallization exotic fats for chocolate. This topic will discuss about how important the structure of food, lipid crystal, how fat crystal change during the processing of chocolate, how important the crystal are, and the profile of certain fats that compose chocolate. This topic seems very related to our daily life. Thus, I think from this talk, we will gain much informative message and knowledge. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can't wait any longer. So please, Dr. Hinori Hondrok, time is yours.
Thank you. Can I share my slide?
Yes, sir. I can hear your voice clearly. Please continue.
Okay, so is it okay now? Does it work?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank to all the members of the committees to give the opportunity to share my recent work. And I'm honored to be asked to give a talk to you. So today, I'd like to talk about the fat crystallization, especially about the chocolate. So let me start. But first, let me introduce about the Shizuoka and my university. Here, Shizuoka is very close to the Tokyo. It's 1 hour from the Tokyo by Shinkansen. So many tourists from Tokyo areas, Kanto areas visit our prefectures often. And I hope you know the Mount Fuji. This is the highest. It's located in the Shizuoka. And our prefecture also famous with green tea. So we have many green tea fields and companies. And this is a photo of our universities. Our university was established on 1987, but actually it was combined 3 universities and a college to unify this university. Now we have 5 schools: food and nutritional science, pharmaceutical science, international relations, management and information, and nursing. Our faculty has around 300 students, so it's very small compared to your university. And the total number of the students is 2,900. And this is a photo in 4 of our universities. It has ginkgo trees like this. It's very nice colors. So if you have a chance, please visit us. In winter, you can see the Mount Fuji from our university. This is a view from my building to the Mount Fuji. Especially in winters, you can see more clearly. If you want to climb, you must visit in summer. Okay, so let me start my talk today. First, I'd like to tell how important of the food structures. So this is a photo of the cake. It is called millefeuille. In French, it means 1,000 leaves. These pies are crispy and cream smoothly melt. So when you bite this one, you can feel the crispiness and the sour, sweet, and smooth melting texture of the creams. This might be more similar for you that fried banana. It also have the crispy texture on the surface, but if not, this fried one was grind and make a paste, you feel the completely different in the when you eat. So the texture of the food is quite important for the palatabilities. So we believe that such a palatability is based on the texture of the food, like crispiness, firmness, or how do you feel with your tongue when you take it. And such a texture also rely on the property of the materials, such as viscosity, stiffness, or elasticity, and all of the based on all of them is a statement of the materials, like they form in the crystals or gels, emulsion, what kind of state the materials are. So we believe that by analyzing the state and the properties of the food materials, it will help to understand the palatability of the food. This is one of the examples how maker structures in food. As you know, the three major components of the food is the protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Protein and the carbohydrate has a quite large molecular weight. It's very long chain. So once it's heated, it's denatured, unfolded, and aggregate each others to form a solid state. Or the carbohydrate also with the water and heat, it's dissolving, melting the folding structures, but once cooled down, they have the aggregate again. In contrast, the fat is a relatively smaller molecular weight. It has less than 1,000. So they cannot make an aggregate like protein or carbohydrate. But the fat can form crystals. I will tell you the detail of the definition of the crystal later. And the crystal can make a network by aggregate each others. And this also will produce new different properties in food. So basically with these major components, we can give some physical properties in food. This is movies, so I hope you can see it. Both of them are cocoa butter and chocolate, and now heating with the hair dryers. So cocoa butter is start to melt as shown here. But the chocolate can keep the foam well, even the temperature already increased. But actually in the chocolate, cocoa butter in the chocolate also melt already. But they can form the shape. They can keep the shape well because the chocolate contains a lot of the sugar granules, and such a mixture complex structure will change the property of the food. So this is a hierarchical structure of the lipid crystals. The size of the lipid crystal, fat crystals, is quite small, less than the microns. So several hundred nanometer in length, and thickness is less than that, and less than 100. So such a crystals make clusters like this, the size of the cluster is micron to the 100 microns, and then they form the network by the aggregating, come together. So with that, we can see the crystals, fat material, fat food, as you can see, like butter or chocolate. So such a food is contains so many numbers of the fat crystals. How to control the structures of such a fat food? So as I said, the crystal is important in the fat food. So we can control the nucleation and the growth of the crystals to modify the structure. Nucleation is the origin, starting of the crystallization. It's a formation of a new crystals. So as shown here, it's like a sea urchin, has many needle-shaped crystals come from the center to the outside periphery and contact each other to make a network. This all is one of the typical structures of the fat crystals in food. Another one is like here, the crystals not divided but grow separately and contact as shown here and then forming the network. This also can be found in crystals. Another way is the formation of the crystal will promote the more number of the crystals as shown here. So with these, tiny crystals are naturally formed with the connecting each others. And last, this is quite typical with and special in the fat crystals. The ones forming the crystals, but by time they change their morphology, their shape, and forming the different crystals. This is called polymorphic transformation, and very important for the fat crystals. So this is a summary of the crystallization process. First, it's starting with a melt or solutions, but once cooled down or adding the additives, the nucleation occurs, so the birth of the crystals. And then it can grow under certain conditions or change their crystal structures by the polymorphic transformation. So such a crystallization process can be promoted by the supercooling or supersaturation. Supersaturation is how degrees the temperature lower than the melting point. So by controlling the temperature, we can control the nucleation or crystal growth. So in the case of the, it was supercooling I talked about. And supersaturation is in the case of the solution. So how much it can dissolve in the solution. So in such a case also cooling by changing the temperature or adding the precipitant or evaporation of the solvent also will promote the crystallization. Many factors we can control to control the crystallization, like pressures, concentrations, or electromagnetic field also. And practically shear is quite important because in the factories, any process will promote the shear to the materials. So we control this kind of the parameters to modify the structures of the crystals in food. It's also the one of the movies to show the immersion. Immersion is the oil and water systems, like oil droplet dispersed in the water. It is called water in oil emulsion, like a milk. Milk is a typical example of the oil in water emulsion. So this circle, sphere, is the oil droplet. And by reducing the temperature, it will start to crystallize. So these blue or orange colors indicating the crystallized fat. So first, at a higher temperature, it can keep the liquid state, but by reducing the temperatures, it was crystallized. Some component of the oil was crystallized as a solid phase. Because in general, the oil contains a variety of the molecules, so some part can be crystallized and others still remain as a liquid. So after the crystallization, if we increase the temperatures, what will happen? Before, oil phase was dispersed as the oil droplet in the solution. But once crystallized and increasing the temperatures, the crystals start to melt, and each oil droplet was combined because when it crystallized, the fat crystals penetrate to the next droplet and make a connection. So once the fat crystals melt, the independent isolated droplet was unified and forming a larger oil droplet. So with such a temperature cycling, cooling down and heating up, repeating again, as shown here, the emulsion was unstable and the oil phase was separated. This is the coffee with milk, but the milk was separated in the independent machine because the condition was not good so much. So the fat crystals also affect the stability of the food in many cases. Now let me move to the chocolate. You may know that Indonesia is now the third country of the cocoa production in the world. So of course I know the palm is a major product, but cacao also is now growing a lot. And chocolate contains cacao solid and cocoa butter. Cocoa butter is the oil phase separated from the cacao bean. And cocoa solid is a solid component like a cellulose, and it also contains polyphenols. It's good for our health, we believe. So in general, the chocolate contains both solid and fat particle part phases in the chocolate. And this one is a sugar crystal. Some chocolate contains sugar a lot, and milk also may contain. This yellow part is a continuous phase of these dispersion systems. Cocoa butters it contains all the particles inside and gives a very unique properties to the chocolate. Here, left bottom showing the solid fat content. This means how many percent of the cocoa butters can keep as a solid at a different temperature. So this dashed line indicating the cocoa butter solid fat content. So under the higher temperatures, the solid fat will reduce because it's melting, and then finally will be 0% of course. So it melts suddenly, the reduced solid fat content suddenly between the 30 degrees C to the 35 degrees C. It's almost the same temperature as in your mouth. So if you take in a chocolate, it melts in your mouth quickly. This is a typical component of the fat in the cocoa butter. Cocoa butter has the consists of the triacylglycerols. It has 3 fatty acid moieties as shown here, and 2 of them are the saturated fat. And at the center, it has one double bond. In general, it's oleic acid, unsaturated fat. So P means palmitic acid with 16 carbons, and S is stearic acid, the 18 carbons, and O is oleic acid. It's also the 18 carbons, but with one double bond. So the lengths of the fatty acid moieties are quite similar. So the cocoa butter contains the 3 types of the triacylglycerols, POP, POS, and SOS. All of them have the similar structures, so they melt at the similar temperatures together. It will give the smooth melting behavior of the chocolate. But actually with a different ratio, they cannot mix each other. Of course, in the melt phase as a liquid, they can mix and mix easily. But when it's solidified, some cases they are separated. It is called eutectic. So in a natural cocoa butter, the ratio is here. That means they can mix and forming the one crystals. And such melting behaviors as shown before on the previous slide like this is because of these crystals. In general, the chocolate can be divided in classified in 3 different 4 different types. And one is a dark chocolate. It's a dark color of the chocolate. It's coming from the cacao mass, cacao particles, and it contains the sugars to give the sweetness, because cacao powder is quite bitter in general. And giving the milk flavors, the milk chocolate also developed in more than 100 years before. White chocolate does not contain the cacao particles. It's the color of the yellowish white color. It's from the cacao butter itself. And that also in general contains a rich of the sugar and the milk powder. Ganache is a little bit different from others because it contains the liquid phase too. So this ganache also actually the emulsion system, the mixture of the fat and water. So because it contains water, it must be kept under the lower temperature, or the microorganism will grow and will be bad quickly. So in Japan, milk chocolate is quite popular among the people. But these days, for the health problems, people prefer the dark chocolate with a high amount of the cacao mass, because cacao powder contains many polyphenol as shown on previous slide. This is a process of the making chocolate. the harvest, and actually it needs fermentation. After the harvesting, the cacao pod was broken, and the bean and the pulp was removed from the pot for the fermentation. And the fermentation will give the unique flavor, aroma. So this process is quite important to determine the flavor of the chocolate. And then to stop the fermentation, it's dried under the sun. So after that, in general, the cacao beans was exported for the further processing. And roasted like a coffee, and break down the cacao beans to remove the shell and grind. Of course, during process, the more cocoa butter was added to form the smooth texture. And the tempering is a quite important process for making of chocolate. As shown here, tempering is a process to control the temperature and modify the crystal structures. First, cocoa butter was crystallized at the lower temperatures, and then increase the temperatures to melt these crystals to change in the different form. It is called the form 5. And then cool down to grow these form 5 crystals. So after the tempering process is molded and storage and to produce the chocolate. So how I will show you how important this tempering process here on these movies. In general, the commercial chocolate, which was of course, tempering was performed. The melting point of chocolate is 33 degrees Celsius. So it doesn't melt when you touch it. But if not tempered, the melting point of the chocolate will be more lower. So by touching with fingers or at the room temperatures, even at the room temperatures, it can melt, as shown here. So the tempering process is very important to raise the melting point, and this melting point is also quite important for how do you feel when you take it. This is different structures of the cocoa butter. Actually, cocoa butter has 6 different crystal structures. Of course, the material, cocoa butter itself is not changed, but with the crystallization process, they can form the different crystal structures. And the different structure has different physical properties, like density or melting point. With the this is the numbers from the unstable low melting point to the higher melting point from the form 1 to form 6. So the commercial one is normally consists of the form 5 crystals. This one has around 33 degrees Celsius of the melting point and smooth melting properties in your mouth. So it is preferred. With the more stable form, like a form 6, it has a higher melting point, so it does not melt so much in your mouth. Or without tempering, they form the form 3 or form 4. These forms are unstable and easily melt when you touch it, or just leaving at the room temperatures. So the controlling of the polymorph crystal structures is quite important for the chocolate. we can distinguish, we can identify the crystal structures with the X-ray diffractions. This is the pattern of the diffractions. It was revealed quite old, more than 60 years before, from 1 to from 6. And here, simple 6, yes. And of course, we can distinguish the polymorph crystal structures by melting. But if melt, we will lose the samples. So without meltings, we need to identify the crystal structure. So X-ray is quite useful to determine the crystal structures. So these patterns indicate molecular packing in the crystals. So different shape means a different molecular packing. Actually, the crystal structures in the atomic scale of the cocoa butter is not determined yet. But we can guess from the similarities of the other fat crystals. So in general, in Japanese I forgot to change in English, sorry. The next one is the alpha form. This is called alpha, and beta prime and beta. These three typical structures are these three structures are typical in the fat crystals. And this green part is the fatty acid moieties of the triacylglycerols. And this zigzag plane of the carbon chain forms a plane. So in the beta prime structures, these zigzag planes are perpendicular to each other. In the molecules next to each other, like shown, this one at the centers. On the vertical direction, it has a plane, but at the bottom, they lay down on the horizontal direction. This is the difference in the crystal structures in beta prime form. In the beta form, such fatty acids or zigzag planes are parallels, and as shown here in the vertical direction. In the case of the alpha form, they have the randomly directed, so they cannot identify which direction are. In average, they have the same difference intermolecular distance, but each one has different values. So it is in Japanese, sorry. The melting point of the alpha is quite low, and with the beta form, it has a higher melting point because the intermolecular distance in the beta form is shorter. That means that each molecule can be close each other and have the more interaction between them. So it has stronger interactions in the molecules. That means to remove the molecules, it needs more higher energies, higher temperatures to melt, removing the molecules and start to move each other. So the melting point is quite high compared to the alpha form because the intermolecular distance is shorter. In the case of the alpha form, the distance is very short, long, and weaker interaction and lower melting point. So this is a problem in the chocolate. As I said, the commercial chocolate contains the form 5 crystals of the cocoa butters, but form 6 is more stable with a higher melting point. Stable means the lower free energies and with by time, the form 5 must turn to be the form 6 because it has more lower free energies. It must occur. So we can just we cannot stop it, but delay the transformation from form 5 to 6 by changing the temperatures, storage temperature to be lower, or sometimes additives also will be effective. But when it's turned from form 5 to 6, this, like as shown here, white dot appear on the surface of the chocolate, as shown here too. Because on the surface, the crystals polymorphs change, and the shape also changed to be like a needle shape as shown here. So these needle shapes crystals will scatter the light, and it will give the whitened textures on the surface. So this appearance will not preferred by the consumers because it looks like a fungus and not unusual. So this transformation is quite big problems in the companies. And as shown here, it contains chocolate sometimes contains something like nuts or nougats, and the nuts contain a lot of the oils. And this oil will migrate into the chocolate, move to the chocolate. And this foreign oil also promotes the transformation of the cocoa butters. So, like long time storage also will change the polymorph from the form 5 to 6, and oil migration also will promote. Oswald lightning also is one of that, but I cannot explain today. And even the not high temperature so much, but temperature cycling also will accelerate the deterioration of the crystals. So the temperature condition for the storage is quite important to keep the quality of the chocolate. And I said on the surface of the chocolate, they change the form, crystal shape, but appearance has varieties. The first one is typical looking of the long time storage, and the second and third, fourth one is the stored under the higher temperatures, and the surface was melt and recrystallized. So it has a darker dot and the whitened part also as shown here. And this one also one of the typical one, especially the commercial product. I will tell you later about this one. And F is we just found collaborate with the Meiji companies. This one is a very short period, but can change the whole of the looking completely like as shown here. And this is quite a unique, it is called blooming. This is very unique blooming behaviors because I said on the surface of the crystals, on the surface of the chocolate, the cocoa butter crystals change their morphologies to be the needle shape. So that means it's grown to be the outside on the from the surface. But this one that we just found is different. It's a liquid cocoa butter will be moved more inside, leaving the skeletal structures of the cocoa butter network outside. So this is not this is the mechanism of the formation of bloom is quite different from the ordinary typical bloomings. in this case. But this can easily occur if you release under the hotter, higher temperature conditions and then move to the room temperatures. So normally the grooming is a combination of the many different processes. And this also the commercial product of the chocolate in Japan. And the right hand side on the surface you can see some tiny dot. It is the actually oil phase coming out from the inside of the chocolate. Chocolate is solid, but the whole of the cocoa butter is not crystallized at room temperatures. 20 to 30% of the cocoa butter is still keeping the liquid phase. So by the changing the temperatures, repeating the raising and cooling down, the liquid phase can be pushed out as shown here. And the left hand side is the broomed chocolate, and the surface pattern is quite similar to the right hand chocolate. So this movement of the liquid phase also, even the same cocoa butters, but this also will promote the formation of the blooming. This is a photo of the cocoa butters, and you may know much more than me. This is the photo taken in Japan at the botanical gardens. And in Japan it's too cold, so that we cannot grow the cocoa butter so much. And this is the structure of the triacylglycerols. At the center, glycerol structures here, and the fatty acid moiety is combined with the glycerol structures. The blue and greens indicating the carbon atoms, and the red one is oxygen. And physical property of the crystals depend on the structure of the triacylglycerols. With a longer length, it has a higher melting point, and the double bond will reduce the melting point. It should be faster. This is a crystal, so the definition of the crystal is as shown here. It has a highly ordered structures, and it needs periodicities as shown here. It's like a brick or a dice gathering, and inside of such a box, bricks, the molecules are packed like here. Right hand is real triacylglycerol structures in the crystals. So two molecules in one boxes, and repeating this box repeating to form the more larger size. So the orientation of this box also must be the same to form crystals. And this is the way of the crystal growth. On the surface of the crystals, it has a flat areas in the molecular scales, and one molecules attach on the surface and move on the surface by the surface diffusion. And at these kink positions, the molecules can be incorporated into the crystals. So, like animation here, the molecules move on the surface and then leads to the kink positions and change their conformation of the molecules and incorporate it. So by repeating this process, the molecules, crystals can be thicker with one molecular size, and repeating that, crystals can grow as the size we can see that. On the surface of the crystals in the molecular scales, we can see the many patterns of the growing as shown here, it is called the island, two-dimensional island. This is the schematic images, and the right-hand side is the spiral hillock. So this is the spiral patterns also can be seen. These patterns also indicating the different growing mechanisms. Now let's move to the compound chocolate. Before I talked about the pure chocolate, but these days the cocoa butter is not enough so much. So of course the problem to reduce the price of the chocolate, the companies try to introduce different fat from the different sources. So such a different fat also will give the benefit of not only the price but the thermal resistance, like in Indonesia and these days in Japan also. In summer the temperature is quite high, so the foam fiber crystals can melt at the room temperature too. So to give the thermal resistance stabilities, using the different fat or improving the melting properties. In the winter in Japan, we produce the lower melting point chocolate or smooth melting behavior. And the processing. Tempering is a buzzering process, so we want to remove that from the chocolate processing. So with such a compound chocolate is classified into two different groups. One is the cocoa butter alternatives, and another one is the cocoa butter substitute. Cocoa butter alternative is the try to mimic the cocoa butters with a different fat. So I said cocoa butter consists of the SOS, POS or POP. So taking fat from the different source to alternate the cocoa butters. In such a case, the many variety of source try to find, like as shown here, shea butters, palm meat fraction, sour fat, or oily butters, and the fractionation process is important to separate the component. Another way is called the cocoa butter substitute, and this one using the completely different fat. Like malic acid, it's shorter than the cocoa butters from the coconut oil or palm kernel oil. So with this fat, it has no tempering required, so it's more easy to make a chocolate. But in Europe, if you use this kind of the fat, it cannot sell as a chocolate because it has a load for the materials. And this is our recent work with the rambutan and mango kernel oils. It's a collaborate with Thai colleagues. And the rambutan kernel fat is extracted from the rambutan seed, and it's rich in the arachidic acid. It's a carbon 20, so with a longer fatty acid. That means the higher melting point. It's quite high for the edible use. So we have to fractionate, separate more lower melting point fraction from this. And another one is mango kernel fat, and this is rich in the SOS. This is the same as the cocoa butters. So this has the potential for the use in chocolate as a cocoa butter equivalent. Cocoa butter equivalent is one of the cocoa butter alternatives. So we try to investigate the property of this fat. And this is just want to show the different optical properties under the microscope. microscopies, and it depends on the direction of the crystals. It's growing from the center to the peripheries. It has the needle-shaped crystals. The crystals can be seen as white or darker, as shown here. Or in this case, the background is dark and the crystal has the colors, and some darker areas also can be seen here. Actually, this color is depend on the thickness of the copper water crystals, but it depends on the directions. You can see the crystals as bright materials. So this is the result of the rambutan kernel fat. It was crystallized at the 20 degrees C and 15 degrees C, and this is the rambutan kernel oleic phase, oleic fraction. So already actually fractionated to separate the lower melting fractions from the rambutan kernel oil. And the horizontal axis is the temperature, and the vertical axis shows the solid fat content. So as shown here, the oleic fractions have the lower melting point compared to the crystals grown at the 15 and 20 degrees C. These are the crystallized and separated from the fraction and checks their melting behavior. So in the case of the crystals at 15 degrees C, it melts over the 60 degrees Celsius, and 20 degrees Celsius, the crystallized at 20 degrees C, at 70 degrees C, it melts. So the crystallization condition will affect the component of the separated fractions as shown here. And this is the pictures of the crystals. The color is depend on the thickness of the crystals, but the orientation is can be seen as shown here. So this dark cross is called the Maltese cross, and it is also showing the direction of the crystals. This is a typical growth of like a sea shaped crystals. And after the analysis, this is the result of the component analysis. The lactic acid was concentrated in the crystals from the 30% to finally more than 70%. So the remaining liquid fraction is less contained lactic acid. So by separating the high melting fraction and lower melting fraction, we can modify the fat properties and make it wider availabilities. So the palm oil also fractionated to the palm meat fraction or palm oil or palm stearins. It's depending on the purpose they use. The fractionation process is quite important. And before move to the next one, just want to tell you about the ultrasounds, because on the next slide I will apply the ultrasound to the crystallization of the fat. Ultrasound is the oscillating sound pressure wave, and this frequency is higher than the human able to hear, so we cannot listen the sounds, but so what is amplitude here? The width of the wave is amplitude, and this is proportional to the power of the wave, and the periodicity is a distance from emitting the waves here. So the frequency is the 1 over the periodicity period. So this with higher frequency means that the shorter period many times repeating in the certain time. So if the ultrasound applied to the oil, the crystallization is promoted. This is the pictures of the how does it work, and the horizontal axis is the time, and the vertical axis is the light intensity. We measure the crystallization process with the laser intensities because once crystallization occurs, the solution liquid will be turbid, and the intensity of the transparent laser light will decrease. So this light intensity indicates a crystallization process. And ultrasound does not continue the whole crystallization period, but applied for the few seconds at the beginning of the crystallization at 0 time. But with that ultrasound, no high intensity ultrasound was this one. But if you apply the ultrasound, it reduces the crystallization time, as shown here. So this is quite useful to promote the nucleation crystallization of the fat. Actually, this is not only for the fat, but can promote many variety of the crystals. And this is the pictures of the crystals of the mango kernel fat. Left hand is no application of the ultrasound, and it grows in the largest aggregation of the fat crystals. In this case, you cannot see the cross darker areas. That means the orientation of the crystal is random, not like a CRT. And right hand side, you can see the tiny white dot. It's indicating the nucleation of the crystals from just after 1 minute. It started the crystallization, and it's promoting the nucleation so much. That means the quite larger number of the crystals were produced. And if the number is changed, the size of the crystal also will be changed because the amount can be crystallized is limited. So if sharing with many numbers of the crystals, each crystal will be smaller. But with the smaller numbers of the crystals, it will be the larger size of the crystals. So the application of the ultrasound will promote the crystallization, and it can modify the number of the crystals too. This is actually the last slide. This is the sparkling waters in the glass, and you can see the many bubbles comes from the same point. So actually this bubble formation is quite similar to the nucleation forming the new crystals. The forming the new crystal, nucleation has a barrier, so it cannot occur at any places. But at a certain place, it is sometimes quite good for the nucleation. It can occur. So the controlling of the nucleation is quite difficult actually, because we have to give some certain surface or additives to promote the nucleation. In this case, some scratching or I don't know the detail, but the surface difference will give some advantage for the forming the bubbles. So other places this has no advantage for the nucleation forming the bubbles. So at the same position, vibrations is depicting the formation of the bubbles. So this is a summary of my talk. It's a little bit scattered, but the cocoa butter is not only the cocoa butter, but it's showing the polymorphism, it's showing the different crystal structures, and controlling the crystal structure is quite important for the fat food. And not only the chocolate, but margarine or butters or any kind of the fat crystals can change their polymorph, and it's important for the not only the palatability but shelf life also. And as I said, the melting property of the fat is important when you apply the fat to the food. So we have to modify such a properties by the fractionation. Fractionation is a typical way to modify the crystal properties by changing the component, separating the component. But it's also so that is controlling of the crystallization is important for the fractionation too. And now as I show here, the edible fat is important, but it's not only as an energy source, but we enjoy the taste of the foods, and for that we need more fat. And the exotic fat is actually no clear definition of that, but it's a trend to find a new source of the fat from the different plants, or sometimes from the insect too these days. And such food waste like kernel, seed kernel is also one of the resource for such a new production, and very important for the future resource. So that is the end of my talk. Thank you for your kind attention. Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Hinori. Thank you very much for your nice presentation. Please give big applause for him.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. Ladies and gentlemen, it was the remarkable presentation from Dr. Hinori Hondo that give us new knowledge and perception about fat crystallization. For the participant, please prepare and keep your question, because we will have a question and answer session after the talk of the third speaker. Once again, thank you, Dr. Hinori Hondo. The next
Thank you very
agenda, it's the talk from the second speaker. Dr. Agus, nice to meet you. Thank you for coming here. Let me introduce you, the second speaker today. Our speaker in the second session is Prof. Triagus Siswoyo. Currently, he is the coordinator of PUI, Bulletin of University of Jember. The newest topic of this research paper are first, the growth, response, and antioxidant capabilities of Meliju, Dinatum genema, in different duration of drug stress. It was published on 2021. The second, light environment effect in the span and ribonucleic acid quality and body weight of male mass musculus. It was published in 2021. The third, genetic diversity of rice Jimpasem Orisa Sativa of Java Island, Indonesia. It was published in 2021 too. He also has a book entitled Indonesian Rice Germinalism. It was published in 2018. In this morning, Prof. Triagus will share an interesting topic about biotechnology strategies for increasing the use of food repeats. So, please, Prof. Triagus, time is yours.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for introducing me. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I would like to thank to committee for giving me chance to present of my research. Yeah, my research is around 7-8 years ago. Yeah. Actually now I am expert in protein, and 8 years ago I am focused in the amylostat complex. Maybe it is Master Hondo. Yeah. Ohayou gozaimasu. Okay, thank you very much. Can I share my PPT, moderator? Yes. Okay. Could you see my PPT now?
Yes, it's clear here.
Okay. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Today I would like to talk about the part of our research about the biotechnology strategies for increasing the use of food repeat. My name is Triagus. I'm from the Center of Excellence on Crop Industrial Biotechnology, University of Timber. Actually, I also am lecturer in agriculture faculty. First time I studied in Libya, we have one big question. One big question is, why do we need fat and lipid, especially in our food material? Yeah. In this slide, show that the importance of the fat lipid if we consume of the lipid material. First is health, brain development and function. As we know that the fat in the brain development of brain content around 60% is very high. 60%. And then from 60% contain the phosphatidylethanolamine and phosphatidylserine. These are the kind of the lipid included in the phospholipid. And then why you consume the phosphatidylethanolamine and phosphatidylserine? Actually, it's very good for our brain. And then the second, that the lipid is the structure component of cell, especially in eukaryotic membrane, meaning the mostly the eukaryotic cell is include around the majority is the structure in membrane. In membrane, in cell, we can find also crystal support the absorption of the vitamin like K is help our health also. Okay, sorry. And the fourth, we can know that the function of the liquid is give energy source. It is one of the energy from the food material. Yeah, is carbohydrate or protein. Maybe around as our body, we can store it in lipid. Sometimes we use the lipid for the produce of energy for our activity. And last, that the type of lipid also give me our help to keep healthy, yeah, healthy and blood vessel, especially the lipid from plant source. This is important why we consume the vegetables, because its vegetable content is essential lipid. Is very important for our health. And as you know that there's some application of the lipids. We can use the lipid for medicines, cosmetic. Maybe it's a woman, but every day use the lipid, especially in cosmetic. In cosmetic contains some phospholipid also, yeah, because the skin becoming fine if the cosmetic including is phospholipid, especially in lecithin, and also in medicine. And then the lipid is the biological effects, protect organ, protect lipid metabolism, compartmentalization, cell structuring, and then cell flexibility. And the lipid also is a measure of food material. We can found from oil. Yeah. Oil is meaning that this one is maybe extracted from the vegetable plants or seed plant. Also in dairy product like milk, also eggs or meats. Indonesia is a mega biodiversity vegetable as mentioned from Mr. Hondo, that is the cocoa chocolate from Japan, mostly from Indonesia. Yeah, mostly because I know that sometimes I go to the coconut industry in Japan, and I said, where you import the cocoa? Cocoa mostly from Indonesia. This means we have the many vegetable oil, as I list in the table. Yeah. In table, we can show that this around 30 plant oil is very potential to explore of vegetable oil. Yeah. In Indonesia, maybe we can see jarak agar, palm oil, yeah, coconut like kelapa, kecipir. I don't know what is said kecipir in Indonesian English. Yeah. Bibit. Okay. And then some also contain the most of the oil, but we can know that this can direct consume or no. Yeah, but it's very potential. We can use to make purpose. Yeah, it's very interesting. And then we can in Indonesia on the boat also cultivation of vegetable oil. If we compare between the lines on production of vegetable oil, you can see in our in slide 36% production. It's very different with the soybean. They need 39% of land, but the production is 25.5% production. Also another, it means that the potential in Indonesia is the palm oil. While our island mostly, especially plantation in Sumatra or Borneo or Kalimantan, we mostly cultivate or plantation in palm oil because the production is very high if compared with another vegetable oil. And how about the consume lipid market in the world? In Indonesia is medium consume in lipid. It's very different with the America, USA, or the Europe. In mostly lipid market is very high. In Africa, maybe not so. I think very low because the temperature is very high. Maybe not need to consume of lipid. It's very different with the American or USA or Europe. The cooler, maybe the body needs some lipid to consume. And many sources of vegetable oil owned by Indonesia will have cheap with low value. It's my problem. It's our problem. If we don't try increasing their use value, is needed. One of way is using the biotechnology, especially use some enzyme to modify the lipid to increase of the use value of vegetable oil. Before that, I want to explain that the three types of natural lipid. Mostly in the vegetable oil contain around 95% is triglyceride. It's too much because this triglyceride have the storage material in the plant, and then 2% phospholipid, and 3% sterol. But if you know that the Mr. Honda explained that the cocoa chocolate mostly using the phospholipid like the lecithin for the solidification of the chocolate. And the kind of natural product, like I said, that the 95% is including glyceride, phospholipid, and sterol. I will focusing in the triglyceride with the phospholipid. What different with the triglyceride and phospholipid? Triglyceride have the sterol specific number 1, 2, and 3. And different with phospholipid, sterol number specific sterol numbers stereo specific number, SN1 and SN2. And SN3 contain phosphate. It is very specific and very different with the triglyceride because the phospholipid have the polar and non-polar in the structure. This one is the target for the modified of lipid. Especially, we can modify the short and long chain of carbon, in fatty acid. We can modify it because maybe from the Honda synthesis said that the the solidification of the lipid is obtained with the long or short carbon in fatty acid. And the several type of lipids of the capable hydrolysis lipid, especially in glyceride and phospholipid, we can use modify the lipid using these lipids. But the lipids have many kind of the enzyme. Like it is one is phospholipid A1, phospholipid B, C, and D. You have specific for the phospholipid, and the lipids is mostly in the triglyceride. We have the three kind of the activity for hydrolyze. Non-specific, like the first figure, this one, all will be cut in fatty acid, become free fatty acid. Also specific in 1 and 3, and specific just in 2. Yeah. This is very interesting. And one of the interesting lipids, he can hydrolyze in the organic solvent. It's very different with the enzyme, with the another enzyme, especially in the hydrolyze. He needs just this minimal water to make the hydrolyze. And how about the biotechnology? We can approach that the structure or modified of the lipid. The first, we must to insulate the lipids from the microbiology is very stable. If we use the modified the lipid, become with another kind of lipid. That one is we isolate from the microbial, the lipase, and then also we can modify the stability of the lipids, maybe especially in organic solvent. And then one of strategy we can use the lipid using the carrier agent is called immobilized lipids. Yeah, immobilized lipids is very important that we will modify structure of the lipid. And we know that the production, the lipid, we can use source of the oil. We can perfect our oil extraction, and then we got the oil, and then lipids have the modification and structure of the lipid. Structural lipid used during processing are functional. And functional, you can know that the effect of the lipid structure is the physicochemical properties, and functional aspect also is focusing in modifying of the structure lipid. Also during processing, we can know the change of the chemical structure, stability of the lipid, and also during processing. And structure lipid can use applications many kind of the product in food. Directly use in the bakery, yeah, or increasing of flavor, or we can direct given the dairy product. And first, in our research, we use the sugar fatty acid ester. We focus it first on our research how to modify the ester with the sugar, because the sugar fatty acid has the potential becoming pure for surfactant. We can use for the skin protectant, for preservation, food emulsion final, and drug formulation. This is the structure of the sugar fatty acid. Sugar is in here in glucose, and the second using the sucrose. This one is the example of the sugar fatty acid ester. And then we know that the wheat modified, we have the two kind of property phospholipid. This one, gluco fatty acid ester. This one, hydrophilic and lipophilic. And I want to show the step our research. First, we isolate the lipids from Aspergillus niger, and then we got the some the supernatan from the Aspergillus niger. This means the extracted Aspergillus niger. Then the Aspergillus niger have the potential many enzymes like the amylase, silanase, and acetic oxidase and lipase. The focus our research to isolate of the lipase. And purification step from the Aspergillus niger we do, and we got the step from crude enzyme and the hydroapatite for the purified of the lipase. And we got one single of the lipase around 43 kilodalton, this one, and the structure of the lipase is here. And how to synthetic of sugar ester using immobilized lipase. First, we use to modify lipase in immobilized. First, lipase. After that, we use the immobilized using the silite as the support of the lipid, or silite for the carrier agent for lipase. And we test the useful of the immobilized lipase that we can use many times, for the catalyte or the synthetic of sugar ester. In this our data, you saw in our figure that the 4 times or 5 times after we recovery of the slide enzyme, we can found the still activity to synthetic sugar ester. Also in here, the presentation how to make the slide and lipase. We can use the stability of the lipase. This is the process of the how to make the sugar ester sucrose, and then we use the fatty acid, and then we got the alkyl sucrose. As so the TLC analyzed in here, and this one is the product of the sugar ester. And then we try to optimize how to synthetic sugar ester using the organic solvent, and then also we still addition of the DMSO also, and we compare from a solvent different in log P. Log P in here is mean that the log P is the activity, the character of the solvent from negative or positive in here, and then we up the DMSO also in here, and then we found that the solvent with the DMSO have the activities or the synthetic sugar ester we found. It means that this one is acetone we can use, ethyl methyl ketone also we can use, and also in butanol. And another like chlorofenexane or methanol, just the minimal sugar ester synthetic. And then we decide that the synthetic for synthetic superester using the ethyl methyl ketone. And how to produce a scale of the superester is very simple using. You see in here is the must be stable in temperature in here, and then must be agitation. We use the spiral in here, and then we do and rotary and cyclus of the synthetic in here using the organic solvent, and then we combine how much the lipase we can use, and then if we know much of lipase use is stable, I think is standard in here must be take around 6 milligram of the lipase, and then how about the temperature? Temperature around 40 degrees Celsius to 60 degrees Celsius, and we decide in 45 degrees Celsius. And at time we use the maximum of the produce as superester around 4 hours, and then in the composition, the ratio of the surplus and the ester, and we about around 1/4. Yeah, 1 is the sugar, ester, and then 1 is sugar and 4 is ester. We combine, and then we decide to optimize of the production sugar ester. And how to application of the sugar ester, especially in our field in agriculture, the sugar ester can be used the coating of fruit and vegetable to extension of cell life of the fruit. Yeah, it's very simple to do. We use the sugar ester, and we combine with carotene for the coating in here, and then we hope that the edible coating help to prolong cell life and reduce quantity of fruit, fresh fruit and vegetables. Because in our city we produce the mango too much during the harvest, and then we want to try how to modify or coating of the mangoes. We treatment the mangoes same time of harvest. The first we use the control, no coating, and the second we use the plastic. Treat the mangoes, we put in the plastic, and then we seal, and then we use the coating. Coating is made just the carotene to make coating in mango. The last is coating plus sugar ester. And then we can after 7 days of storage, we can find the performance of the mango. Yeah, the control you can see is maybe around decay. Decay of the mango becoming not so good taste. Yeah, but it's plastic also still acid. Yeah, still acid, and the coating carotene is, and I think is middle, and the coating acid is good. It means we can see in the color parameter that the coating SA is good performance for the rebinding of the mango. Also in the texture and total solid in mango, also we know that the coating SA, the texture is high. It means that it is still good, not so soft and not so hard, but it's between soft solid in here around I think it's middle, yeah, middle between no, middle is low from the control and plastic. And also sugar ester we can use in making spongy cake. Yeah, we can use this one. Yeah, it's very soft if we add the sugar ester during we make the spongy cake. It's very more delicious, yeah, and more soft, and then extended sell life of the spongy cakes. You can see that the enthalpy, I use the enthalpy to no parameter to spongy still good quality during store it in 5 day. It mean is very good in enthalpy. It mean that the enthalpy is one of parameter for the cell life or quality of the material. Also in farmers, not so hard. It is very soft. And sugar ester also have property is in antibacterial. Sometimes I use the sugar ester for the coating of the mango. Also, we try the sugar ester for to protect the tomato for the bacterial. And so that the fungus in the tomato have the protect sucrose ester in here. It's same day during storage. It's still fresh compared with not the sugar ester add in tomato. And also antibacterial activity, we can use bacterial using Salmonella typhi, Solaniciarum, coli, E. coli, and Bacillus cereus. They also have the activity for antibacterial. And the next, we also in our group also synthetic vitamin C ester combined with between the vitamin C and ester. Why we use the vitamin C ester? Because we want to know to retard of the residue of VCO, virgin coconut oil. Because if we direct at the VCO using vitamin C, I think is lipid of VCO becoming broken. But we can use the vitamin C ester is very good. It means how to rule of the vitamin C ester for avoid residue of coconut oil. Firstly, same with the sugar ester, must be lipase must be to immobilize, and then we synthetic vitamin C like this one, and ethyl acyl donor, and use same EMK ethyl methyl ketone 45 degrees Celsius, and this lipase, and we got the vitamin C ester in here. And then for the know that the activity of synthesis using the APLC or TLC in here, that the asapal and asapal using the enzyme. Asapal is mean the authentic of the vitamin C ester, and then we can produce using the lipase, immobilized lipase. And then from here we know that how to protect of coconut oil for residue. We use the different temperature, yeah, from 60 degrees Celsius to 120 degrees Celsius in here. That the VCO, if compare the VCO not
add with the asapal enzyme, using enzyme, is more broken. I mean, you can see in our data. Yeah, the effect of the addition of ascorbyl palmitate, the oxidation level of coconut oil, that the peroxide value, yeah, this one is peroxide value, and TPP remain. This the ascorbyl palmitate oil can reduce the peroxide value. It means that the broken parameter for the residity is using the peroxide value in here, and this one is the this one also is the effect of the ascorbyl palmitate. And we also transesterification of phospholipid with PUFA. This one want to healthy bread. Yeah, we want to make the healthy bread. Sometimes maybe when I study in Japan, the problem is the child to consume of bread is consume of the PUFA. Yeah, PUFA is the from sakana fish. Yeah, from fish is not so light directly it the fish. One of way we can use the oil from the fish. We can extract and isolate the oil, and then we esterification. Yeah, we combine using the phospholipid in here, and then we got the esterification, and we can the ratio esterification 20.2, and recovery ratio of phospholipid around 59%. And if we add of the transesterification product for PL and PUFA, you can see in bread making. In bread making, this is the around 40 ppm in here. You can see that the performance of the bread becoming good. It means that the becoming swelling is becoming good. I think it's swimming becoming high. But you can see that the swimming of the bread is better. Is distribution of the gas in bread. Is distribution is average same. The diameter of the grass in bread is one of the quality of the bread. You can see this here. Yeah, if we add the phospholipid combined with the PUFA, bread becoming good performance and more softly than the control. This is very good. And then one of the important thing of the PL combined with PUFA is the bread becoming longer. Especially is cell life of the bread, maybe around 2-3 days becoming longer. It's very important for the bread industry. Just we can increase of the 2 or 3 days is very good. Is the economic income for the bread industry. It is very good. And then also, as I said before, that the bread including PUFA is especially to child is very good for health. And then I want to explain about the why we use the fatty acid, yeah, like fatty acid in bread making. As I said before, that we use the lipid in the bread making. We have the good increasing performance of bread. Why the lipid can be improve the performance of bread? Firstly, must be know that the kind of the lipid. how to study the kind of the lipid with the short and long lipid, we can modify it with the lipids. It means we can use phospholipid because the we can use in phospholipid. Yeah, and phospholipid have the specific in A1 is mean the hydrolyzed in SN1, and phospholipase A2 we can modify it in the SN2, and two kind of the SN we can change with another. I think is we can use what is long or short fatty acid, we can modify it using the phospholipid. And very simple this one, to know how to advising of the stat lipid complex in bread. It's very simple in here in step of the into synthesis of the phospholipid with the short or long fatty acid in here, and then we check TLC or using the HPLC also. And using TLC you can see that the one or two monoalkyl phosphodicholine we use this year, and we found after synthesis of the short or change fatty acid. And how to prepare stat lipid? Stat lipid is completion for the retardation of the bread, also make the longer cell life of bread. And just we do is very simple. Maybe this one also Mr. Honda is explain about the interaction of the lipid with the amylose. Yeah, lipid and amylose, we have the formation of stat lipid, but it's different with our study. We use the phospholipid in here. And then we can know the amylose, superester is also possible, but it's in here. We can use the modified in here, and then heating, and we can know that the interaction between stat lipid have complex not in structure interaction, but the physical interaction. Okay, as you know that the same scanning electron microscopic know that this one is no fatty acid. This one is after we use the fatty acid. You know that the lipid have the covering of the granule of stat. It's very important because the swelling of the granule stat will be good and that not so becoming broken during make the bread. Like this one, and then we can know that how to interaction between the stat with the lipid using the iodine staining. Blue is not the interaction or in the complexion, and then use the amylose, this one using the DSG, differential calorimetric scanning. Use the amylose. If we interaction between stat and lipid, we can know the complexing in within between 100 and 120 degrees Celsius. Also using the X-ray diffraction in here, we can know that the V type of complexing occurred in the stat lipid complex. And then this one to regulation lethality, to know the how to regulation bread during storage. All is the results of the regulation of a stat in here. Also in Aframi parameter is known the rate of the kinetic when we storage of the bread or storage of the sample. Also, susceptibility of amylose GNP complex hydrolyzed by glucoamylation in here. You can see then this one if control, and then this one not give off the phospholipid, and then this one is control also, it give the phospholipid after give the glucoamylase. That this one maybe in bigger know the whole of the start is mean that the hydrolyze of glucoamylase the core of the start. And then in the start lipid complex, if we hydrolyze using glucoamylase, is not found of the whole in the start granular. Okay, I think it's all. We can conclusion because there's many research we can do in here, and we explain to all of you. I hope this one is can do. Yeah, I think is Indonesia have the mega diversity of vegetable oil. We must to explore and we can use, but I think is to directly import. Directly export is no need. Must be first we must to modify it, and then if we export, we can got the additive value from the vegetable oil. I think it's all. Thank you very much your extension. The last I will say the thank to our professor, Professor Naofumi Morita, we are expert in food science, and Keizo Hosokawa from Health Management University, and Akira Ohara from the Agriculture Meiji University, and from Kyo Ohli, Life Science Gyeongsang University for the SEM and the detections, and Kang Sang-song from the Gyeongsang National University, and also member of our laboratorium nutraceutical and pharmaceutical in Center Development Advanced Science and Technology University Jember. Thank you very much for your extension and attention. Thank you.
The third speakers will be led by Dia Savitri as our moderator. Ma'am Dia Media Ayu Savitri is lecturer of Faculty of Agriculture, University of Jember. The education from her is Master of Agriculture at Department of Biofunctional Science and Technology, Hiroshima University, Japan, and BSc at Department of Agriculture Product Technology, University of Jember. The research paper is Financial Feasibility Analysis of Cocoa Spread with Coconut Ingredients and Agro-Industrial Product. Ma'am Dia, time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So it's such a great honor for me to be able to be here to meet the speakers and the participants. Previously, we have listened the talks from the first and the second speaker. And now we are coming to the talk of the third speaker. So let me introduce you to the profile of the third speaker, Dr. Jakia Sultana Jyoti. So currently, she is an associate professor at the Department of Food Processing and Engineering, Faculty of Food Science and Technology, Chattogram Veterinary and Animal Sciences University, Chattogram, Bangladesh. And as far as I know, currently she is undergoing a postdoctoral degree at Kyushu University, Japan. And her recent educational background was PhD at the Department of Biofunctional Science and Technology, Hiroshima University, Japan. Some of her research papers are the prevalence of tea consumption among university students of southeastern region of Bangladesh and associated factors, and also effects of different cooking methods on physicochemical and bioactive compounds of selected green vegetables in northeastern region, Bangladesh, and the quality evaluation of commercially available instant mango drinks powder in local market of Bangladesh. So maybe we can please welcome to the Dr. Jakia Sultana Jyoti. Please to share about your talks. Time is yours.
Very good morning, good afternoon everyone. Many thanks dear moderator to introduce me nicely in this webinar. At first, I would like to thank to the organizing committee of the University of Denver to invite me as a guest speaker here. And it's my pleasure to present my research in this webinar. Let me share my slide. Dear moderator, can you hear me properly?
Yes, it is clearly shown.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, today I would like to present entitled Tea from Different Spices and Fish Endocrine Capacity. Here is the outline of my presentation. First, let's go through the background first. We know tea is the most popular aromatic drink or beverage in the world after water. So why it is popular? It is popular because thereby increase the demand of healthy food and beverages. You know that tea comes from mainly camellia plants. Despite not being from camellia synthesis, herbal and spices tea have recently gained greater attention because of their long history of being used in traditional folk medicine and greater antioxidant activity. As spice contain different bioactive compounds that has like therapeutic potential for a range of illness. Therefore, it is reputed as health promoting beverage. So let me explain why the antioxidant is very important for us and how do antioxidants improve our immune system and why it is very important in our life. You know that free radicals are atoms that have an unpaired electron. Here you can see in the figure. When they get into the human body, they find a suitable electron and take it from the molecule of the living cell. Therefore, the molecules which have lost the electron start to look for a replacement. That's why a chain reaction starts that provokes the aging of the body and that can lead to the development of illness. A part of free radical is formed in the process of normal metabolism. For example, when breaking down nutrients to create energy that allows the body to function. And also like some gases like exposure to ultraviolet radiation, air pollution, on other factors can also be cause of their occurrences. That's why too much physical appearance and so-called oxidative stress occurs in our body, and that is very harmful for us. At it starts the process of damaging the cell of the body. That's why free radicals can damage the body DNA, which contain genes as well as protein, lipid, cell membrane, and causing illness. Sorry. So we need some components which will neutralize these free radicals. So which is the component? The component is antioxidant, which has the electrons. Here you can see the antioxidant neutralize these free radicals, giving some of their own electrons. In making this sacrifice, they act as natural switch off the free radicals so that the chain reaction will stop and the cell become healthy. Here you can see. And this helps break the chain reaction that can affect other molecules in the cell and other cells in our body. And so where we find this kind of antioxidants? Mostly the antioxidants are found in plant and animal origin. And if you say like spices is one of the very good source of antioxidants because it contains bioactive compounds which has like different phytochemicals such as polyphenol components, flavonoids, sulfur containing amino acid, anthocyanin pigment, and volatile components. And like spice contains antioxidant that has a high capacity of free radicals scavenging, so that like if we have spices if we take spices in our food, or if we can have like spices drink, then we may have too much antioxidants in our body that will neutralize the free radicals, and our body will be more healthy cells. And our immune system will develop against like this type of oxidative related damages, and consequently reducing the prevalence of different chronic disease. And the healthy advantages of spices may include also like stronger muscle membrane, reduced fever, effectiveness against some bacteria, virus, depending on what kind of antioxidant it contains. Here you can see the figure. The antioxidant works as different good points, like prevent, protect against different diseases. Several common spices including like cardamom, cinnamon, turmeric, ginger, and clove are now understood to exert beneficial physiological effects and pharmacological function on human health, as it contains different components like phenolic compound, flavonoids, sulfur-containing amino acids, anthocyanin pigments, and volatile components, which is a good source of antioxidant properties. However, the characteristics and the quality of tea in general are affected by different factors like plant variety, growing condition, processing method, and the very important thing is brewing condition. The phytochemical extraction in tea is normally carried out, by brewing in hot water. However, it has been shown that due to high temperature, it deactivates or destroys some good components, because some components are very sensitive to heat. So that's why it is very important to balance the brewing time and temperature to get the high quality, high antioxidant capacity spices tea. But there is no study that detects how time and temperature may affect the antioxidant capacity of spices tea. Therefore, our purpose was to investigate the bioactive compound and its antioxidant capacity, and also to assess how brewing conditions like temperature and time simultaneously affect these phytochemicals and antioxidant capacity of spices tea. And finally, the most important thing that to optimize the suitable brewing condition to get high antioxidant capacity. Let's go through the methodology. So in this study, we use 5 types of spices. At first, we use the raw spices, and if it needed cut, we cut and then dry in the cabinet dryer at 60 degrees centigrade for 24 hours or up to drying. Then the sample was grinded into powder and sipped through 2 mm method. Then we prepare the tea by brewing this type spices by using different composition. So we take 1 gram of each spices sample, then use 100 ml water and heat different temperature like from 70 to 90 by using different time like 2.5 minutes to 10 minutes. After that, the spices tea was cooled down to room temperature and filtered through filter paper and then stored until that time of analysis. For all combination, total phenolic content, total flavonoid content, total anthocyanin content, and total antioxidant capacity by BPPS assay were analyzed by UV-beam spectrophotometric analysis. Here is the principle of UV-beam spectrophotometric analysis. And we did like all analysis was carried out duplicates and obtained data was subjected to ANOVA followed by Fisher's LSD test to determine whether any significant differences exist in between the treatment. And we use Minitab statistical software to get the statistical values. Let's go through the results. In this figure, you can see the total phenolic content of cardamom teas at different temperature and different time viewing time. And here you can see that there is significant difference among the samples. You can see that when temperature increased, total phenolic content was also increased for the cardamom tea, and when the viewing time was 2.5 minutes. But when the viewing time increases from 2.5 minutes to 10 minutes, the total phenolic content decreases gradually. That means if you want to get good quality cardamom teas with high total phenolic content, it is required to use short time but high temperature. In figure 2, you can see the total phenolic content for cinnamon teas. Here the trend is different from the cardamom. Here you see the highest value was obtained when the temperature is 80 degrees centigrade for each brewing time. Then decrease when the temperature from 80 to 90 degrees centigrade. That means the total phenolic content of cinnamon tea would be highest when we view it at 80 degrees centigrade. But when we go through the time, it is that the viewing time from 2.5 minutes to 5 minutes, it is increases. Then it decreases when we increase the viewing time to 10 minutes. Therefore, it is necessary to view at to get the total phenolic content highest at view time 5 minutes, and the temperature should be 80 degrees centigrade. Let's go through the results for the clove tea. Here you can see the highest concentration was found for the viewing time and temperature, like there is almost no significant difference among the samples. That means if you want to get clove tea, you don't need to heat too much and you don't need to use high temperature. In the figure 4, you can see the total phenolic content for the turmeric tea. Here the change is that when temperature increase, the total phenolic content increase for each viewing time. Therefore, it means if the time increase, the extraction of total phenolic content also increase. But if you compare the viewing time, that you can see the total phenolic content for viewing time 2.5 minutes and 5 minutes is almost same. There is no significant difference. That means to get the high quality turmeric tea, you don't need to heat too much. Only 2.5 minutes is enough to get high quality turmeric tea. And if turmeric tea is heated up to 10 minutes, then the total phenolic content decreases gradually. In figure 5, you can see the total phenolic content for the ginger tea. Here also follow the same trend with the previous, like if you increase the temperature, then you will get high phenolic content in the ginger tea. And also similar trend, like there is no significant difference between the viewing time 2.5 and 5 minutes. But after 5 minutes, the total phenolic content decreases because some degradation occur due to long viewing time. So from figure 1 to figure 5, results showed that total phenolic content increased with the temperature and all hot water infusions, and viewed it when the temperature is around 90 degrees centigrade. But the higher time decreases the total phenolic content. So the present study concluded that it's better to view 2.5 minutes to 5 minutes to get the high amount total phenolic content, and the temperature should be around 90 degrees centigrade. Let me show the total anthocyanin content of cardamom tea. Here, the highest value was found in the tea sample viewed at 70 degrees centigrade for 2.5 minutes, and it decreases when temperature increases. So for the cardamom tea, if you want to get high amount anthocyanin, it's important to view it at low temperature and short time. And this table shows total anthocyanin content of cinnamon and clove tea at different viewing temperature and time. Here you can see for the cinnamon tea, the highest value was obtained when temperature is 80 degrees centigrade and when the viewing time is 10 minutes. Here you can see when viewing time increases, the total anthocyanin content for cinnamon tea is increases. Here you can see. On the other hand, when temperature increases up to 80 degrees, the total anthocyanin content in cinnamon tea is higher, but when temperature increases to 90 degrees centigrade, it decreases gradually. For the clove infusion, you can get that higher total anthocyanin extraction was occurred when temperature is 90 degrees centigrade, here you can see, and when the viewing time was 2.5 minutes. Therefore, to get the better quality flow tea, it's better to view at 90 degrees centigrade. And if you see, if you compare the viewing time, you can see if it increases viewing time, then if the temperature is low, then the total anthocyanin extraction will be high, up to 80 degrees centigrade. Here you can see the 10, but decreases when it's 90 degrees centigrade. The table to represent the anthocyanin content for the turmeric and ginger tea respectively. For the turmeric tea, you can see total sorry, the highest amount anthocyanin was found when viewed at 10 minutes and 70 degrees centigrade, here 4.69. And here you can see that when the viewing time increases, the anthocyanin content increases. On the other hand, for the ginger tea, you can see that the highest amount was found in at 90 degrees centigrade when viewing time is higher. So it is very different. That if you want to get high quality ginger tea, it is very important to view at 90 degrees centigrade and for long time, like around 10 minutes. Total flavonoid content of tea infusions is shown in table 3 and the next table, table 4. Here you can see the for the cardamom tea, the highest value was obtained when sorry. When the temperature is 70 degrees centigrade and the viewing time is 10 minutes. That means to get good quality cardamom tea, it's important to use low temperature but long time. For the cinnamon tea, the highest value was obtained when temperature is 90 degrees centigrade and the time is 5 minutes. Here you can see in the table. Here also you can see that for the cinnamon tea, there is a increasing when the viewing timing increase, the extraction level also increases when the temperature is low. But when temperature is increased to 70 to 80, then the trend is different. That means the if you increase the viewing time from 2.5 minutes to 5 minutes, it will increases. Then it decreases when the viewing time is higher. And the similar trend is followed for 90 degrees centigrade too. And for the clove tea, the highest amount was found at 80 degrees centigrade when viewed at 10 minutes. And this tea also followed the similar trend. Like if you increase the viewing time, you can see here, then the total flavonoid content will increase. Let's move to the turmeric and ginger tea. here you can see for the turmeric tea, the highest value was obtained when the temperature is 80 and the time is very low, like 2.5 minutes. And here you see, like if you use long time, then the total flavonoid content of turmeric tea will decrease gradually. And also, like if you want increase the time up to 80, the flavonoid content will increase, but after 80 it will decrease. That means the extraction of total flavonoid in turmeric tea would be better if you use 80 degrees centigrade and low temperature. And for the ginger tea, the highest value was obtained at 90 degrees centigrade and when the time is 10 minutes. Let's move to the very important thing, that is antioxidant capacities of all spices. That was our main focus. How would be the antioxidant capacities for our teas when you use different time and temperatures. And here table 5 and the next table 6 shows the antioxidant capacity of spices tea in different brewing conditions. And in table 5 illustrate that highest DPPS radical scavenging capacity found in the clove tea. Here you can see at 80 degrees centigrade when brewed at 2.5 minutes. And lowest was obtained in cinnamon tea when brewed at 90 degrees centigrade for 10 minutes. However, if we go through individually, for cardamom tea, the highest value was obtained when temperature is 90 degrees centigrade and the brewing time is 5 minutes. And if you compare the temperature wise, then you can see when the brewing time increases, you can see here increases to 2.5 minutes to 10 minutes, then the antioxidant capacity decreases because the bioactive compound may be heat sensitive. That's why also, like if you use long time, some degradation may occur. And next, the cinnamon tea, the highest value was obtained when we use 80 degrees centigrade and 5 minutes, similar to the cardamom tea. And it also follows trend that to get high antioxidant capacity, it takes 5 minutes to extract the whole bioactive compound. Then if you use more long time, the degradation occur, but the maximum extraction will occur when the brewing time is 5 minutes. For the clove, the maximum value was obtained at 10 minutes. Here you can see that means the maximum bioactive compound will extract when long time you brewed at long time. And also the clove may contain some sensitive bioactive compound. That's why if you use high temperature like 80 or 90, then the antioxidant capacity will decrease gradually. Here you can see for 10 minutes. But for the 5 minutes, maybe the extraction was not the maximum value. That's why the value may vary. And this table shows the antioxidant capacity for turmeric tea and ginger tea. Here you can see, if we go through the individuals, like turmeric tea, the highest value was obtained for 70 degree centigrade, for 80 degree centigrade, and when viewing time was 2.5 minutes. Here the trend is also similar, like if you use long time, then the antioxidant capacity will decrease for all temperature. It follows the same trend. That means within 2.5 minutes, all bioactive compounds will be extracted and would be the high antioxidant capacity. But after that, the bioactive compound will degrade gradually. For the ginger tea, here you can see the maximum value was obtained when the temperature is 90 and the time is 10. That means to get high antioxidant capacity, it's better to use 90 degree centigrade and long time to get high antioxidant capacity ginger tea. So this result showed that every spices are individuals. Some spices need long time and some are short time to extract the bioactive compound in the water, and also like some needs little more time, and some spices need short time to get the high antioxidant capable tea. Here you see like antioxidant capacity vary over time and temperature. We know that like antioxidant capacity may have impact on total phenolic content, total flavonoid content, and total antioxidant content, anthocyanin content. So we want to get like whether the total phenolic content have effect on the antioxidant capacity of these teas or not. Therefore, here you can see the figure shows the correlation between total phenolic content and antioxidant capacity. Here you can see the positive correlation between them, therefore that means like if the total polyphenol content increases, the antioxidant capacity will also increase. The figure 8 shows the correlation between total flavonoid content and antioxidant capacity. Here you also find the similar trend, like positive correlation between total flavonoid content and antioxidant capacity, and it has like moderate relation. Sorry, I forget to put the correlation coefficient here, but we find moderate correlation for total flavonoid content, but high correlation for total polyphenol content. And this figure represent the correlation between the total anthocyanin content and antioxidant capacity. Here we also find like total anthocyanin content in spices has effect on the total antioxidant capacity. Therefore, like antioxidant properties of this of all of these spices teas influences the quality of the food, and most important like to maintain the human health. And in this present study showed that the presence of total phenolic content, total anthocyanin content, and total flavonoid content in spices teas are responsible for observe the antioxidant properties in the tea. And let's move to the conclusion of my research. And here the research in this research findings, the importance of linking the viewing condition data to obtain optimum health outcome from the different spices tea infusions. And these results of the study showed that all the responses were affected by the analyzed factor, that is viewing time and temperature. It may vary different degrees, but it varies significantly. And moreover, the correlation study also proved that the higher phenolic content and flavonoid content and anthocyanin content had a high impact on the antioxidant capacity of the teas. So let me share the key findings from this research. We hope this research could be helpful in finding the best viewing condition for producer, retailer, and consumer to generate hot or cold tea beverages that will maximize the health benefit compared to typically used tea infusions. Actually, by using this research, we now understand what kind of teas we want to get, like better antioxidant capacity, and how much time required, and what time would be better to get good quality tea. And thank you very much for your patience, and thank you the organizing committee to invite me here. And it's really a great pleasure for me to present my research and to introduce my research with all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
If you have any question, you may ask.
Okay, thank you very much to Dr. Jakia Sultana Jyoti. So please give big applause to her. That was a very fantastic topic. Maybe from her talk, the participant in Indonesia can relate with the herbal tea from Indonesia too. So maybe now we can continue to the question and answer session. Okay, perhaps there is a question from the audience coming in this room. Please, do you have any questions? To Professor Tri Agustiswoyo, would you please to come in front on the stage? So if there is no question from the audience in this room, maybe we will continue to answer the question from the chat room in the Zoom meeting. Okay. So here is some question to Dr. Hondo. The time is yours.
Okay. So the question is what is the importance of the particular soil when determining the quality of food product? This is very important because